The fortune, it's very secretive with you. Why is that?
It's not a very interesting topic, and it's not something I spend very much time on.
There's a reason Jimmy Goldstein does not discuss how he got so much money.
I've attended more than 4,000 games. I'm somewhat of an NBA historian.
You likely recognize Goldstein from his lucrative courtside seats at just about every notable NBA game. He has posed and partied with some of the biggest names in entertainment, from Drake to Jay-Z and even more. The kinship in the NBA? Goldstein is in the club. Many players know him, they say hi to him, they have a connection with him, however.
So I choose to talk about the things that are more exciting.
There is a reason why he avoids discussions on how he attained such wealth.
$500,000 a year on basketball, does that make you a little crazy or the most committed fan ever?
I'd say a little of both.
Though he fully embraces gloating and discussing how much he spends. And best believe the NBA Hall of Fame will happily take his undisclosed donation to create a wing named after him. As owner of mobile home parks throughout California, most of them seniors only, Goldstein has been unrelenting in his quest to defeat limits on the amount of rent he can charge his tenants, according to court records and interviews with tenants and the city officials with whom he has done battle. Goldstein has filed dozens of legal claims against California municipalities, seeking damages totaling in the hundreds of millions of dollars for blocking his plans to increase rents by as much as double or more. In justifying the rent hikes, which continued throughout the pandemic, he often claims economic hardship as a landlord. Once, records show, after pioneering a method that effectively stripped rent control from one of his parks, then defeating a city's efforts to stop him, he sued the city for having tried, as a warning to others. He has relentlessly sued Carson, a suburb of Los Angeles, since the 1980s to force it to abandon its rent control policies. But the Supreme Court effectively said the city has the authority to enforce its land use rules despite the property's owner's desire for more revenue from his mobile home parks.
Eventually started making investments on my own, and these investments have turned out all right.
Goldstein owns two 400-unit parks on Avalon Boulevard near the StubHub Center, now Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson. The court decision came in response to his drive to convert lots at Carson Harbor Village to resident ownership, which would have ultimately allowed him to charge more rent. He has called himself the 21st century's first dandy. His tenants would describe him differently. To them, he is a robber baron. Most of them are poor and elderly. Nevertheless, Goldstein routinely asks municipal rent control boards for steep increases. The largely senior citizen residents of this mobile home park were paying rents averaging $408 per space per month. In September 2007, Goldstein submitted applications for a general rent increase, which would raise rents by $618.05 per space per month. A year later, Goldstein submitted more applications, seeking a rent increase of $342.46 per space per month. Vice reported he was granted an increase of only $36.74 per space per month. The following year, he filed for a $250 rent increase. He was granted an increase of just $25. After both decisions, and indeed after most decisions against him, Goldstein had sued the city of Carson.
I believe that when you have a passion for something, you should take it as far as you can possibly go.
Bill Winder, the lawyer who opposed Goldstein in court, was asked whether Goldstein was the most problematic landlord faced by those cities during his tenure as their lawyer. His response, times 1,000. The Post reported Goldstein at one point even joined the rent control board he sought to destroy, but he said he was removed by city officials because he knew the rent control ordinance too well. In the past, he has called his properties, and I quote from a 2012 article in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, land investments in California.
What advice you have for anybody that wants to emulate your amazing lifestyle? What can they do to follow in your footsteps?
Well, I'd say that they should make their passion a high priority.
He's an a-hole, says Nancy Haig, a retired U.S. Postal Service carrier who lived at Colony Cove. Write this down. He's an a-hole, that dirty MFer. The man's an insatiable, greedy SOB, said Steve Miller, a tenant of Carson Harbor Village who years ago wrote a nasty letter to Goldstein that prompted a visit from the sheriff's department. It's just ridiculous. How can you keep screwing people who are making you a wealthy person? He makes Simon LeGray look like Shirley Temple. He should be on TV and have peanuts thrown at him. Even though I am a liberal, I don't believe that rent control is fair, Goldstein said. It's easy for someone not in the business to get a quick glance at my business and come to the conclusion that I'm just one of those greedy landlords. In fact, Goldstein suggested, it was the tenants who fought back who were greedy ones. These aren't just needy people who can't afford to pay more, he said. These are all people, regardless of their wealth, that are allowed to get away with paying only 50% of market value. One resident said for the most part, following Carson's victories over Goldstein in court, his neighbors are on to fearing the next landlord. Quote, we've had an opportunity to listen to his story in the courtroom and watch him lose and lose and lose, the tenant said. So the majority of the people here say, I don't give a damn about Goldstein. What I do give a damn about is, when he dies, who's going to buy us?
If you'd like to hear more thought-provoking content like TYT Sports on Facebook and to help in my journey to keep media independent, go to tyt.com/Rick.